And just like that, we are in week 2 of the NFL season. I can't believe it. This weekend was full of action, drama, strategy. It was so much fun to see a bunch of new head coaches in different places, new quarterbacks, rookies really standing out and making a big splash on their first touch point onto the field as an NFL player from college. So a lot of great hours of football were played, and it's hard to break down what the big themes are. But something that really stood out to me was the dichotomy between legendary NFL players and very standout rookies. So this to me really illustrates the beautiful life cycle of an athlete and how athleticism can actually really defy logic as much as I try to apply data and figures and predictions to athletics. It's often impossible. And, we as fans and strategists make the most of the information that we have, but oftentimes we're surprised, and that's just really a joy of being a fan of something, in my opinion. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what the themes from this week were, and then I'm going to touch a little bit on the infamous Jake Moody situation with the 49ers this week against the Seattle Seahawks. And what I have to say about that might be a little bit different than what you're expecting me to say. So stay tuned for that. And at the very end, I will go over 3 custom prop bets that I've created for you using my data-driven analysis and all of the insights around the NFL to give you 3 prop bets that you need to lock in to win big. Let's start, you guys. 2 standout players from week 1 really force us to acknowledge that athleticism can defy logic. So we have to, of course, start by acknowledging Aaron Rodgers. His first week as a Pittsburgh Steeler was really incredible. He looked comfortable, I'll say that, throughout the game. He spread the ball around to 7 different targets. He had 5 passes of 20 yards plus. So right off the bat, these are really good statistics, but it wasn't all pretty. His pocket mobility was still restricted. That is most likely due to just being a couple years off of his Achilles injury. It's normal that a player like this wouldn't be quite as mobile, even 2 or 3 years post-operation. So that is still an area of improvement for him, but he was really taking it in stride against his former team. So Rodgers, let's take a look at what other statistics that he had here. The offense, he found 7 open targets. And another thing he was able to do was really read the Jets' miscommunication. So not only was he really highly equipped to run his offense, but he also was able to read the Jets' miscommunications. And that could really be a little insider information that he has as a former player. So although he didn't leave on good terms with that franchise, he has all of the insider information, the plays, the personality types, a lot of tells even that he may be able to read just from the other side of the field facing them, because that's what they did in practice, right? Like in training camps and practice, they're playing against each other. So he is very equipped to take on this team in a primetime battle, as we saw this weekend. So, what else do we want to say about Aaron Rodgers? I mean, he finished 22 of 30 passes for 244 yards and 4 total touchdowns. And he tied Tom Brady with the most career games of 4+ passing touchdowns and no interceptions. So this isn't, to me, as a fan, a major shock, but it is kind of, to me, him saying, I'm still here and I'm not going anywhere. And that's impressive because he has had a lot of scrutiny and I would say some light controversy as well around him. He kind of burned the bridge with the Jets pretty hard when he left. Kind of reminds me of Jerry Jeudy last year playing against his old team when he became a part of the Browns. They come back to these games with a real vengeance. And we have to remember that when we're watching these games where we have players switching teams and then playing their former team, there's a little extra energy there, that's for sure. So I really enjoyed watching him as a longtime league member and quarterback. He's been a franchise quarterback for multiple different teams. Really, really interested to see his life cycle, and it doesn't seem like it's declining anytime soon. And then on that very same day, you take a rookie who has never played an NFL game, completely justify their selection in the first game of the season. So to me, I look at this as an a rookie, green as grass, and a legendary player. And it's pretty incredible how both of them sort of defy the odds. Like, a rookie out of his first year of college, first year in the NFL, and a quarterback who's been in the league 20 years. It's crazy that, to me, they both have the opportunity and were able to capitalize on the opportunity to be incredible players in the week one. So that just says to me how dynamic and athletic every single player in the NFL is, and how special it is to be an NFL athlete, and how unique it is to be able to capitalize on the opportunity as a player, and not only just, do your job, but to really come out strong and to really kind of perform outside of expectations, right? So, you have a Jared Goff and a gosh, I don't know, like Josh Allen, sure, like Lamar Jackson, like those guys, they're playing, okay, last week was an exception, but to me, they're playing at an elite level. They've set a new bar, but we expect them to play that way. But when we have these two guys on completely different sides of the spectrum in the player life cycle, and they exceed expectations, that says something else completely different to me. And it's really profound, and it's really exciting, and it's a beautiful part of the game. So we have to focus again on that rookie side of the spectrum. We have Aaron Rodgers as the veteran, and then in that very same vein, we have rookie Emeka Egbuka. And he, like I said, he justified his selection by just one game. The Buccaneers, I didn't expect him to come out so hot this week. And what are they? They're like, the Buccaneers, they're Pirates. He was like shot out of a cannon this game. So let's take a look at a little bit of his stats here. He was the 19th overall pick in April's draft. And he was from the Ohio State Buckeyes, so that's a very, very legacied college organization there. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team who selected him, they are really looking smart right now. So his role, he was essential today, and he proved to be the difference in the season opener. That and Baker Mayfield having an exceptional game as well. And when I say exceptional, this is based on expectation, right? So it's not exceptional if you were putting his stats on like a Lamar Jackson, but it's very exceptional for a Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. And that's not shade. It's just the way that the standings are and the power rankings, and that is what it is. So here we go. Baker Mayfield, he found Egbuka 4 times for a team leading 67 yards on the day. And that is very unlike the Tampa Bay offense. They usually do not produce at that rate. And in the biggest moment, Egbuka delivered his second touchdown grab. Both of his touchdowns, by the way, were 25 plus yards. And that was what pushed the Buccaneers over to victory. So that is quite a debut for a receiver who will likely continue to play a role in that similar capacity as a leading wide receiver for this organization. And for Baker Mayfield, being a trusted and tried and true receiver for him will really help that offense start to click. Another story to me that it has been standing out from week one is the 49ers special teams, specifically Jake Moody. Now, this guy, he's been with the team for 3 years. He had a pretty horrifying show on Sunday, and I'm not saying that to be, to inflame anyone. It was just unfortunately the truth. He missed a 27-yard field goal. That is, unfortunately, that's the bread and butter of a kicker. You need to be able to make those kicks. And a lot of the questions circulating right now are, why is Kyle Shanahan so loyal to him? And that's something I've also been struggling to put my finger on. So let's see the kick in question here. Really, really out of character for a kicker to miss a field goal like that. And you guys all know that. You've been watching the games for years. That doesn't really happen. And so I'm going to tell you my theory about this. And then I'm going to tell you, first let's take a look at what Shanahan had to say. Let's see what the 49ers head coach had to say about this.
Have to consider what you do at the kicker position, considering, kind of the up and down nature of how Jake has been.
I don't know. I thought he had one of the best games I've ever seen a guy have last week. I know he missed extra point today, which definitely doesn't make us happy, but we'll see how it goes in the year. I know he's a talented kicker. I know he's done some really good things for us. He had a rough last 7 games last year, but I think he's had a real good offseason and a real good preseason also.
So to me, Shanahan's reaction to this indicates that there's something a little bit more going on than just lack of talent. So I think it's pretty, when you see a situation like this, it's easy to be like, oh my God, that guy sucks. We got to get him out of here. And I've had my fair share of moments of thinking that way as well as a 49ers fan for a long time. But Shanahan's willingness to stick with him indicates that there's something more going on, and I've really been scraping Twitter or X, and I've been trying to figure out what's the loyalty coming from, because Shanahan is certainly a loyal guy. I read a report the other day that he had, he has the players to his house. He has his kind of team captains really intimately gather with him, and they have conversations that are really, really peer-to-peer. And I know that he is a loyal coach, and he's a nurturing coach, as most coaches are, hopefully. But there's something here that feels like a big question mark. And let me tell you what that is. Let me preface this by saying, do you guys remember when Simone Biles had the twisties? Okay, so I'm not super well versed in the twisties or the yips, but from my basic understanding, the twisties are in gymnastics, gymnasts, when they get in their head and they're no longer able to perform the very simple tricks that were almost like second nature to them, the very simple moves. And it is not a physical problem, it's a psychological problem that then manifests itself physically. And it might sound crazy to you guys, but it's a very real thing. If you Google it, take a look at some articles. There's been actually a decent amount of athletes that have suffered from this and never been able to make a full comeback to their full prior level of play. So in that same sort of vein of the twisties, there's also the yips in baseball. So that's when like a pitcher will not be able to do that same pitching motion. Physically, they are capable of it, but mentally there's a blocker there. And this has been scientifically studied. And it just popped up in my head. Like when I was watching Jake Moody, I could not for the life of me, probably like you, understand what was going on. He was just, it's easy to say, oh, this guy's in his head, like for sure. But there's something more going on here. So I did a little research and I was like, has this happened to an NFL kicker before? And it has. Let's look at this clip right now and take a peek.
Gary Brackett. Nick Harper returned the ball to midfield, leading to a Mike Vanderjagt field goal attempt with just 21 seconds remaining. Both the 46-yard kick and the Colts' hope for a comeback were no good. The 21-18 victory makes the Steelers the first number 6 seed to advance to the championship round in the history of the NFL.
That was Colts kicker Mike Vanderjagt. He made 87.5% of his field goals during his 8 seasons on the Indianapolis Colts. And in the 2005 playoffs against the Steelers, he had a chance to tie the game with 18 seconds left. It was a long but makeable field goal, 46 yards, and then he completely shanked it. And then from that point on, he was never, ever able to come back to his full playing capacity. And he credits, or, blames, if you will, having some version of the twisties or the spins or the yips. To circle it back, my theory is that there has to be something more going on, like the twisties, the yips, the spins, with Jake Moody. There has to be something more, because I know that the 49ers have a backup kicker. I know they have budget to go out and acquire one. I know that there's a lot of free agents out there that would probably do a little bit of a better job right now. So that's my theory on why we're seeing such loyalty. And, I could post this video today, Monday the 8th, and by tomorrow Shanahan could announce that he has picked up someone else and cut Moody, or put Moody to the practice squad. That is very possible. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm going off of Shanahan's attitude. And Shanahan's attitude seems to reflect loyalty. We're sticking with him. If I had to find a silver lining to this situation with Jake Moody, is that the 49ers offense is forced to be creative and forced to be aggressive on offensive plays. So Shanahan is not the most aggressive offensive play caller. He's been chided for that season over season. He's very rote. He doesn't often get too creative. We did see a little bit of that with Debo and Christian playing quarterback, like maybe a year or two ago, but it's not often that he's really being super, super creative with plays. And I think that's also because the 49ers do just have tried and true talent, so you don't really have to get too tricky to defeat your opponent. But now that the 49ers are in this situation where they can't perhaps always rely on their kicker to make what should be a slam dunk, if you will, kick, they've had to get pretty creative on the fourth down. So the 49ers did try two fourth downs in the week 1 opener, of which they converted both. So that's pretty great. I think that's definitely a diamonds under pressure situation there. And obviously now they're 100% on their fourth down conversion rates, but only a handful of teams this week, the Colts and the Chiefs attempted fourth down conversions. And the 49ers still at this very moment do have the highest percentage of success on fourth down. So yeah, it's kind of a silly stat, but I do also think that this might encourage or spark or inspire some more creative behavior. Maybe it's going to keep defenses off balance, because also they don't know when they're going to use Jake and when they're going to go for it on the fourth down and not attempt a kick. And I kind of like that. I think that's fun. I think it's going to be fun for a week or 2 or 3, and then it's not going to be so cute anymore in week 5 and 6. And I won't be excited to see them doing that after a certain point. But right now, I am proud to see them embracing the silver lining aspect of Jake Moody's utter confusion on the field is the nicest way I can put that. So I think we could definitely expect to see more aggressive play calling with Shanahan. And then once we see these fourth downs being converted out of necessity, I think that will inspire some of the younger players like Guerrero and Green and Moore and these newer players to be, and Brian Robinson, to be seeing them clicking, getting into their groove and feeling confident that on the big stage, they can do these plays they've practiced in practice over and over. So I'm excited for that. I think that's kind of a momentum shift. And the last thing that I promised you guys are 3 prop bets that I am very, very excited to introduce for week 2 of the NFL season. The first, you guys, is Geno Smith rush for at least 1 touchdown. I feel so good about his performance last week. I talked about it a little bit in preseason, but watching that guy kind of get a second life breathed into him has been really, really fun. We need Brock Bowers to get healthy, but other than that, the Raiders are really, really exciting me this year. So this next week's game will be the Raiders home opener. It's their first AFC West divisional rivalry game of the season. And it's quite juicy because Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh have a little bit of history of competitive clashes dating all the way back to their college coaching days at Stanford. So this is a fun one. And I do think that Geno Smith is going to get at least 1 rushing touchdown this game. So keep an eye out for that. Lock that one in. And the other thing, you guys, is that the Chargers allowed last year 0.4 rushing touchdowns per game. So that's about 1 every other game. So that's near the bottom of the league in rushing touchdown defenses. And that number seems low. But it's important to note that the mobile quarterbacks specifically have found success against this Chargers defense in the red zone situations. And they are not able to contain QB scrambles as well as I think they would like to. And to me, this vulnerability kind of makes a Geno Smith rushing touchdown somewhat bold because it's Geno Smith, but not too bold, knowing this Chargers defense and where they have gaps in their abilities and where their strengths and weaknesses lie. So Geno Smith, I think he's going to turn on his wheels. I think we're going to see a rushing touchdown, and lock that one in. Second custom prop bet for you is expect to see at least 1 defensive or special teams touchdown in the Cowboys game this week. So the Cowboys are going to be taking on the Giants. So betting on a non-offensive touchdown is a little bit high risk, but the reward's pretty high depending on how you play it. And it often is, it is more likely actually statistically for a defensive or special teams touchdown in a rivalry division game. And that's what we're facing this weekend. So there's a lot to prove on this Cowboys defense. In my opinion, they played up last week in week 1. Their defense was like, oh, you think we're down? We're not down. And they made a statement. Offense, a lot to work on there. CeeDee Lamb, a lot of misses, and we have some things to tighten up. But defense, I'm pretty trusting that this is going to be a I think this is going to be a special teams defensive game for the Cowboys. So that is your custom prop at number 2. Now I do expect to see a little bit extra juice out of Saquon Barkley because they are playing the Chiefs. So that's right. It's a Super Bowl rematch happening in week 2. So we're going to see the Eagles and the Chiefs take each other on again. Remember, the Eagles are coming off of a win. Chiefs coming off of a loss in Sao Paulo. They match up again for the first time in this new NFL season. So I expect that Saquon Barkley will have 2 touchdowns at any time throughout the game. I do expect also to see them being a little bit tricky on offense because now they don't have they've lost a couple players. They've lost a couple players, both sides have. And yes, they know each other and they are one of the last teams that they both did some really big in-depth prep for, but the teams there's some new faces, there's some missing faces, there's some different vibes going on. So I do expect to see Saquon Barkley hit at least 2 touchdowns in this add some fuel to the fire for this rivalry. And it's kind of a new rivalry, but I like it. So what do you guys have for that game, by the way? I think I have to take the Eagles on that one just because I didn't really like how the Chiefs looked last week. I didn't like it. And not just because they lost, but I felt like they were resting on their laurels a bit. And they seemed out of sync, out of touch with each other. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a big piece depending on when he's able to come back. And I also know Rashee Rice. That's a missing piece too. So it's not fair, really. The injuries are really difficult for the Chiefs, but it is what it is. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in week 2. So what are they going to do? I don't know, but I do know Saquon Barkley will run for at least 2 touchdowns. So keep an eye out for that. All right, you guys. So that is week 1 wrapped up, week 2 prep. We've covered the nuanced topics that you're not seeing them on the headlines of, ESPN, but they are interesting factoids and nuanced ways to look at storylines that are emerging throughout the NFL as we find ourselves going into week 2. So thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think is going to happen in this Chiefs-Eagles game. I'm going to watch the spread and watch the in-game betting as it gets closer to and as the game begins. I do think it's going to shift a lot. So I can't wait to see what comes of that. And everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and I can't wait to watch alongside you this weekend. Bye.